When the Spanish first set foot in the Philippines, they expected to face chiefs and kings. What they didn't expect were the women, queens who ruled kingdoms, led armies, and defied foreign conquest. These were the Filipino warrior women Spain couldn't defeat. Before the Philippines was a colony, it was a world of kingdoms, scattered islands connected by trade, language, and sea routes. And unlike much of the world at that time, Filipino women were not confined to silence. They were rulers, diplomats, and warriors. They could own property, lead communities, and even command men in battle. When Spain came, it wasn't just a clash of weapons, it was a clash of worlds. One patriarchal, one matriarchal, and in that battle many Filipino leaders stood unbroken. The Age of the Warrior Queens. Across the pre-colonial Philippines, women held power through lineage and merit. They were called Dayang, Binibini, Bai, or Prinsesa, depending on the region. They weren't token rulers. They wielded real authority, signing trade deals, forming alliances, and leading their people. Among the most legendary were Queen Urduja of Pangasinan, Dayang Kalangitan of Tondo, and Princess Candarapa of Luzon. Each represented a different kind of strength, political, spiritual, and emotional. Let's begin with Urduja, the most famous of all Filipino warrior queens. She appears in historical accounts from as far back as the 14th century, written by the Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta, who described meeting her during his voyages through Asia. He called her a woman of great wisdom and courage who ruled a powerful coastal kingdom called Tawalisi, believed by some historians to be part of what is now Pangasinan. Urduja led an army of both men and women, fierce warriors trained in horseback riding and archery. According to Battuta's accounts, she refused to marry anyone who could not defeat her in combat. While historians still debate the exact location of her kingdom, her legend carries deep truth, that long before the Spanish or Americans arrived, the Philippines had female rulers who commanded respect across Asia. Another real historical figure, Dayang Kalangitan, ruled in the 1400s, nearly a century before Spain ever saw the islands. She was queen of Tondo and Namayan, powerful kingdoms along the Pasig River, which is now modern-day Manila. Her rule marked one of the most prosperous eras in pre-colonial Luzon, a time of trade with China, Brunei, and other Southeast Asian polities. Kalangitan co-ruled with her husband, Raja Lontok, but her influence was immense. Historical texts mention her as an equal ruler, managing alliances, overseeing governance, and ensuring social balance. She represents something crucial in Filipino history. That power was shared, not monopolized by men. That leadership could be strong and nurturing at the same time. In the 1570s, when Spanish conquistadors began conquering central Luzon, they encountered Princess Candarapa, niece of Raja Lacandula of Tondo. She is remembered for her tragic romance with Juan de Salcedo, a Spanish officer, a love story that became legend. Candarapa refused to convert to Christianity despite her affection for Salcedo, staying loyal to her family's faith and customs. When her family's lands were taken, she remained defiant, a symbol of cultural pride in the face of colonization. Her story may not be one of battlefields, but it's still one of resistance, choosing loyalty to identity over comfort under colonizers. In the Visayas, early Spanish records describe female fighters who joined men in battle. The chronicler Antonio Pigafetta, who sailed with Magellan, wrote about encountering painted women, tattooed from shoulder to ankle, who wielded weapons as fiercely as the men. Among the Visayan pintados, women were trained in self-defense and sometimes fought right alongside warriors to protect their villages. Spanish soldiers were honestly astonished by this. In Europe, women were, rarely seen on the battlefield, but in the Philippines, they were just part of it. These women weren't anomalies, they were actually part of a warrior culture that valued courage above gender. Some women's power came not from the sword, but from the spirit. The Babaylanes, who led communities spiritually, also became defenders during colonial uprisings. In Negros and Panay, several Babaylanes led revolts against Spanish authorities, blending faith, healing, and resistance. One of them was Teresa Magbanua, known as the Joan of Arc of the Visayas. She fought not just during Spanish times but also in the Philippine Revolution against the Americans in the late 1800s. Teresa led hundreds of men into battle, often on horseback, wielding a bolo. Even generals saluted her courage. Her story bridges the ancient and the modern, showing that the Babaylan spirit of leadership and defiance survived centuries. In the Cordilleras, Igorot women were equally respected in war and peace. While men fought in raids, women guarded villages and fields. If men fell in battle, women could take up arms, a rare sight in colonial accounts. To the Spanish, these mountain communities seemed, wild. But to historians today, they were actually examples of gender equality and social balance that were just unknown in 16th century Europe. The Spanish Empire defeated armies, but it never conquered spirit. The Filipinas' power wasn't limited to the battlefield. It lived in her ability to adapt, to lead families through oppression, and to preserve traditions when open resistance was impossible. For every woman killed or silenced, a dozen more kept their culture alive, through song, through medicine, and through faith. That is how the warrior women of the Philippines truly won, by ensuring their people's survival. For centuries, colonial writers tried to erase these women from the record. They, preferred stories of male conquerors and kings. But slowly, modern historians are bringing them back. Filipino anthropologists, authors, and teachers now retell these stories with pride, not as myths, but as facts of history. Queen Urduja may have been half legend, but Dayang Kalangitan was not. Teresa Magbanua was real, and her bravery was witnessed by, hundreds. Their lives remind us that the Philippines was never passive. It was powerful long before colonizers wrote it down. Every time a Filipina leads, speaks, or stands up for justice, she carries a spark of those ancient queens and warriors. In every community healer, teacher, or mother guiding her family through hardship, that same Babaylan strength lives on. The legacy of the Filipino warrior woman isn't about conquest, it's about resilience, the strength to defend not just land, but dignity. The Filipino warrior women Spain couldn't defeat remind us that leadership has many faces. Some ruled from thrones, some from the mountains, others from within their homes. They fought not only with weapons, but with wisdom, compassion, and an unbreakable sense of purpose. Spain conquered the islands, but not their spirit, because you can occupy land, but you can't conquer courage. And as long as their stories are told, the queens and warriors of the Philippines will never truly fade.